Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We're very happy that you're here and you're joining us. We are going to be having a webinar called Teaching Reading 1, 2, 3, The Order Matters. Our mission is to inspire educators so adults succeed and communities thrive. That's what our mission is here at COABE. We are an award-winning We've started an award-winning national campaign called Educate and Elevate. It's won numerous Davy Awards. Our field has staved off $87 million in funding cuts and successfully added $60 million for local adult education programs. Nearly 100,000 contacts have been made. You can learn more at www.educateandelevate.org. I actually think we surpassed that number last week at our national conference. Submit your success stories at that website as well. If you've got student success stories, workforce partners, and state innovations that you would like to submit, you can do that at the Educate and Elevate website as well. We had our national conference in New Orleans last week where we had our national award winners recognized. The Teacher of the Year got a $10,000 check. Administrator and Adult Learner of the Year also received $10,000. State Innovator received $2,000, Workplace of the Year and Advocate of the Year also received $2,000. So congratulations again to all of our winners, and maybe next year you will be one of our winners. So we're preparing here at COABE for a Capitol Hill Hit the Hill Days. We're going to be planning on 400 visits with legislators and staff. We're sending out targeted e-blasts that are going out bi-monthly to legislators, and we have an award-winning student ambassador program that we're going to be also talking about with them. The next Capitol Hill Day is on May 6th and May 7th, so stay tuned for some updates on that. We deliver more than 50 webinars annually on trending topics. We have national level expert presenters. Today our presenter is Kelly Province. We bring PD outside the brick and mortar and bringing it to you live on your computer, right in your office or your home. Continue education units are provided. It's free to members, and we always thank our annual sponsors. We also would encourage you to take part in our virtual conference. We always have over 1,500 attendees, 10,000 downloads on trending topics. Again, we use our nationally acclaimed level expert presenters. It's free to members, and we always want to thank our annual sponsors. That'll be coming up this fall. Adult learner memberships are free. You can go to www.coabe.org to register any adult learners in your programs, and they can become a COABE member for free. We also, just at our New Orleans National Conference, did a training session with our award-winning ambassador program. So look for some updates coming out in regards to that on the next month's update. Join us in 2020, all hands on deck. We're going to be in Baltimore, Maryland, April 5th to 8th, 2020 at the Baltimore Marriott Waterfront. It's going to be a great conference. You're going to get some great seafood and a lot of fun right on the water in the Inner Harbor area. So please join us next year. Put it on your calendar. We just released another journal. It's called Prison Literacy, the Key That Opens Doors to Opportunities. We had our first actual Prison Literacy Committee meeting at our national conference this past week, which was really exciting. So we encourage you to take a look at the special edition on adult prison literacy. We had a lot of new partners coming on board with us this year. We're happy to recognize Amazon, Napa Auto Parts, Skills USA, Google, Tyson Foods, Chamber of Commerce, and the U.S. Department of Education, just to name a few. We have 47 state partners, 23,000 active members, and 65,000 contacts. We have a new and exciting partnership between Google and COABE. We're going to be sharing more about this in next month and also probably in a couple weeks on the next webinar. Google is going to be hosting boot camps, and you can go to find more information on that at educateandelevate.org/Google. Today's presenter is Kelly Province, and I'm going to turn this over to her.
teaching reading for over 30 years with adults and also children, ESL. And the research is really, really clear that we need to teach reading in a certain way, and it's more effective, works better for our students, and works better for us. So what we're going to do today is go through this and look at the recipe for teaching reading that works better. And we're going to talk about the research principles that back this up. All right, so Liz, you're there, right? Liz?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so normally the way I do a workshop is that I interact a lot. So occasionally I'm going to call on Liz to interact with her. Okay, and so we're going to get rolling. It's not that no one ever taught me how to read before. It's just that they never took me back far enough. They didn't know what I didn't know. And I love this quote because I hear it from my students all the time, and they're so grateful when we can identify where they are in the reading process, and we can take them back to that point so that they can move forward more quickly. So there are 5 steps in becoming a reader, and the first 3 are the ones that teach you how to read, and the next 2 are what we use to read and learn for the rest of our lives. So when you're learning to read, the first step is phonemic awareness, then phonics, and fluency. And once you reach fluency, you are ready to really focus your attention on building vocabulary and comprehension.
Hold on, Kelly, just one moment. Did you share your screen with us yet?
Oh my goodness, I thought I did, but I can't see anyone. Okay.
Hold on, everyone, just one second.
Yes, thank you for catching that. So I'll do Alt F1.
Nope, that's for speaker view. You just hover and hit share.
It's not popping up.
Okay, I can share mine.
Okay. Just a moment. Wait a second.
I'll stop sharing mine. I'll let you try, and then I can get it. I can do it if you can't.
Okay, so this is a teachable moment. So I'm up here and I can see your slides from the COABE, right? And so
sure.
Down here, I see. Here we go. All right, is this better?
There you go. Yes, now, yep, perfect.
And I have to put on slideshow from beginning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I apologize, everyone. Can people see now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm not going to read our quote again because we get it. People need to start where they are because our adults have so many holes in their learning that we're trying to fill them in as we go along. So we've got our 5 steps to becoming a reader: phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And we're going to talk about all of these and best practices in helping our students gain mastery in each one. So the first one is phonological awareness. And phonological awareness is such a great thing. I hope everyone knows about it. And if they don't, this would be the one thing I would really love if you could take away and incorporate in your classes. Because what they found is that non-readers, adult non-readers, have virtually no phonemic awareness. And adult beginning readers perform very poorly on phonemic awareness tasks. But the great news is if we help build phonemic awareness, then their reading ability really seems to improve a lot more quickly. And this is pretty exciting news for those of us in adult literacy. So let's talk a little bit about exactly what phonemic awareness is. So it's part of a bigger group called phonological awareness. And phonological awareness deals with identifying and manipulating the units of spoken language. And the term we're more familiar with is phonemic awareness, which is identifying and manipulating individual sounds of spoken language. So let's look at a few examples. So phonological awareness would be being able to identify a sentence, the dog is hungry, or the words in a sentence, the dog is hungry, that those are individual words, or the syllables, hungry. All right, and phonemic awareness drills down even further, and it deals with manipulating the individual sounds in words. For instance, dog is a blending with rhymes or the individual phonemes. And a phoneme is actually just each sound that you hear. It's not the spelling, it's not the phonics, it's the sound. And helping adults be able to hear each of these sounds will set them up so when they try to match the sound with the phonetic spelling, they'll be much more successful. So the two most important phonemic awareness activities are blending and segmenting. So when we spell something, we segment it. And when we blend it, we put those sounds together in order to read and pronounce it. So here's an example of what you would do. And I always want to make sure there's an easy way to remember things. So remember when the telephone was just sound? So phonemic awareness deals with sounds. There should be no visual letters at the time that you're doing a phonemic awareness activity. It's just training the students to hear all the sounds in a word. So let's do a blending activity. And the easiest one is rhyming. So you would take an onset or the beginning sound, right? Like B, and rhyme it with ark, and you'd come up with bark. And D, ark, dark. Hold on, come back. Then you'd have, there you go, P, ark, park, M, ark, mark. And that's an example of blending. And you would do it with common patterns, which allows a student to become successful very early. And what I'm going to show you are some things you can do in your classroom that you can easily make up, or your students can set up the charts themselves. You don't have to buy anything or have any kind of special program. You can use your current lesson to do a little phonemic awareness lesson within your class. Okay, so when you segment a word, you do the opposite. Okay, you're breaking, instead of putting it together, you're breaking the sounds apart. So for example, if you were, you would say, how many sounds do you hear in toothbrush? You go t, oo, b, r, sh. So you would hear 7 sounds. And believe it or not, when you first do this with students, they're going to have a lot of trouble doing this. They may hear 2 sounds or 3 or 4. So your job is to help give them enough practice that they can hear all the different individual sounds in a word. And it's really, the research is super clear on this. When you do this, it is going to help them learn to read better. So for example, in the word puppy. Liz, how many sounds do you hear in puppy?
I hear,
And I need you to make them for me.
yes, ma'am, P, A, P, E.
Good.
Puppy. 4.
Yeah. How about tiger?
Tiger. T, I, G, 4.
Yes, she's pretty good. What about turtles?
Oh, turtles. Okay. T, T, L's. 5.
Yep, and plane.
Plane. Plane. 4.
Yes. And so it's all about the sounds, not the spellings. That's so important when you begin to work with students. All right. And the reason it's so important is phonics. Oh, but you know what, Liz? I want to play a few more games with you, okay?
Oh boy. All right.
All right. So there are tons of phonemic awareness games you can play. And when you're teaching a class, we all have all these curriculums, right, that we have to follow. So you can add some of these games in the beginning of your class or right before break and play them for like 3 or 4 minutes. But if you do it every time you have class, then your students will start to get better at it, and it is really going to help them. Okay, so here's an example, a phonemic awareness game. Remember, we're going to play with sounds, all right? So it's really easy to begin with hearing 2 different words, breaking one word into 2 words, a compound word, right? So if I say, I'm going to ask you, Liz, to say baseball without ball.
Base.
Yes, very good.
Okay.
A
Did
dog
I do great?
without a dog. See, this is why
Harder than you
we
think.
play 'em. Yeah. So say hot dog without hot.
Dog.
Right. Card game without game.
Card.
So do you see, that's a really good way to break them into this. Then the next level down is syllables, okay? So I want you to clap out the syllables in reading.
Okay. Reading.
Perfect. Recipe.
Recipe.
Right. And so, believe it or not, if you can have adults begin to hear the rhythm without giving them a ton of rules, you have just empowered them to help figure out how to decode new words. Okay? So here's another one. And it's sort of the same game we played a minute ago, but it's a rhyming game where you have an initial sound and you rhyme with the rest of the word. And the reason this is so powerful is, for some reason, we like it. We like rhyming, and we're going to use it to help students begin to realize they can read chunks of words. You know, they really can read chunks of words, and they can write using the power of rhyming. So an example of rhyming would be play. So tell me what that is. Play makes. Liz?
What am I? I'm confused.
You're putting the word together with the initial sound and the rhyme.
Playmate.
So
is that what you said?
play makes
Play.
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 Yes.
Play.
Stay.
Stay.
Yes. Good. That's it. It's just that simple, but it's training them to hear these components, these sounds in the words. Then another thing you can do is to see if they can recognize if things rhyme. So I'm going to ask you if these 2 words rhyme, and you just say yes or no. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Stay, say. Do they rhyme?
Yes.
Stay, say. Pit, pen. Do they rhyme?
No.
Good. So it's really just that simple. Now, it's easy to hear different beginning sounds, and it's easy to hear different ending sounds. The most difficult thing is to hear the sounds in the middle. And usually the sounds in the middle are vowel sounds. And they give our students the most trouble. Because remember, our consonants are pretty consistent, right? But the vowel combinations can be a bit tricky. Okay, so you can play games. You would start playing the easiest games, and when they master that, you give them something a little more challenging. So I'm going to ask you, Liz, if I'm going to do the first sound. Do these have what I want you to tell me, not the letter name, but the sound you hear at the beginning of these words.
Okay.
Cat, hen, holler. Excellent. I want you to tell me the sound you hear at the end of these words. Sam, him, ham. Excellent. Now, I want you to tell me the sound you hear in the middle of this word. Aim, fame, same.
A.
Perfect. That's great. And so I want to do one more thing. I had to pick a hard word because all of us are so good at spelling, etc. But if I said spell tergiversate for me, what would you do? It means to change your mind. Tergiversate. I had to find this word.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, how would you spell it? What would you do to spell it?
I would break it apart into sounds.
You'd segment it. You go tergiversate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that skill is yours if you know phonemic awareness, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, it becomes really difficult if you can't break those sounds apart. All right, so now we're going to tootle over to phonics. So phonics is just the spellings that go with those sounds that we've just identified, right? So it seems like it'd be pretty easy. You got 26 letters, 46 sounds. You have 70-some spellings for those sounds. So imagine this. Imagine you can hear and identify the different sounds in the words. So then when you get to phonics, it all of a sudden becomes easier because your teacher is just teaching you how to spell those sounds. Like maybe you have two choices of spelling it, and she's going to let you know which one is most frequently used. It's going to help you be more successful quickly. So you've got 26 letters. They're either consonants or vowels. The consonants you can count on. The vowels are a little trickier, and they're a little harder to hear and identify. So generally, when we're teaching them this, we focus on the consonants and first vowels, short vowels first, and then we move to the long vowels and open syllables. But what the research says is that the way we should teach this phonics is through explanation, modeling. Then we give our students guided practice with feedback. Then we give them independent practice. And then we give them regular and frequent reviews. All right, so the next few slides, what I'm going to do is give an example of how you might teach this and incorporate reviews in such a way that they are not boring, okay? So when you do direct instruction of phonics, I tend not to focus on the letter name because you can read and write without ever knowing the letter name. You have to know its sound. And oftentimes for the adults at ABE levels 1 and 2, they're sort of overwhelmed with information. And let's face it, they've been taught by great teachers, right? They've had lots of teachers through the course of their career. So what we're trying to do is make it simpler for them to be successful. So we'd begin by explaining. We'd point to the letter and say, this letter makes the sound K. What sound does this letter make? And Liz, if you were my student, sorry to put this on you.
No, that's okay. I would say K.
Exactly. And then I would say, write K. And you would. This letter makes the sound N. What sound does it make? Right? N. And notice that we're elongating the sounds. And we elongate the sounds to give their minds a chance to process them. As they get more familiar, they'll be able to do it quickly. This letter makes the sound ah. What sound does it make?
Ah.
Excellent. Right? Ah. Very good. So then once you have done this a little bit, you have some sounds in your repertoire. And we know with adults, a lot of times what happens is at the beginning of a class, a new semester, a new class, we put the alphabet on the board and we go through it and see if there are any sounds they don't know. And we only teach what they don't know because we don't want to waste their time. If they know it, they know it. But generally there's some holes there and we can quickly fill those holes and help them get better. So imagine we've only taught them those 3 sounds, right? So we would teach them how to blend those sounds as soon as possible into words. And I don't know if you can see these little lines under it, but basically we want to be really careful not to teach phonics like this. We don't want to go k, n. We don't want to do that. We want to blend it and never stop making the sound when we're reading it. It's going to help them hear the word better. Because remember, these words are in their oral vocabulary. They're familiar to them. So we would say, can, and they would go, can, and we'd say it a little faster, can, say it really fast, can, oh, can, I know that word. So if you if you blend like that, it really helps them pick it up more easily. And also they do the exact reverse. You've taught them how to segment it. So when Liz segmented, to give her sake, right? You've just taught them how to segment can, because they'll say it slowly. They'll go can, and then they'll write the sounds, i.e. the letters for that word. And it makes it so much easier for them. So they also say in the research that we ought to teach phonics systematically. So for example, I pretended I taught these sounds that you see at the top here. And so I just made up sentences that only use those sounds, except for the AR. And so I told them that directly. I said, these 2 letters, AR, they make the sound R, just like you're saying the letter name R. And so students can read all of these sentences successfully. And you can dictate these sentences to them and they can write them because they have learned all of those sounds. So if we can do in our phonics instruction, make sure they are successful at all times and they have plenty of repetition, they really do feel very empowered because they're always successful. And all you do to this list is you add the next letter you've directly taught, the next sound. So the other thing that works really well with students is once you've taught sounds, and these are all sounds that have been taught here. That's all. I just took patterns from these sentences. And you make a little chart. They can make their own. And all you do is you put the consonants across the top. And then you say, I want you to write as many words as you can. And you ask them, you just say, start with the first sound, go b, and, ban, k, and, can, d, and, dan, f, and, fan, g, and, okay, that's not a word, so you were not going to write that. And that's not a word. J, and that's not a word. And that is a word. And so pretty soon they realize they really can write and spell an awful lot of things. And then what you do is I just filled in a little bit of the list. And just from these two columns, I made a sentence. So what I have my students do is take their own list of words and create sentences and try to use as many words in that particular list as they can. So for example, in the and list, I wrote, Dan can fan the man. And from the add pattern, I wrote, the sad lad had a pad. And especially for AB1 readers, this is amazingly powerful, that they realize they can write a lot of stuff pretty quickly and they can spell it correctly. And then as a teacher, what you do is you just do what you always do. You show them that these small chunks exist in all of our words. That's where they are. That's how we get a bigger word. We just take a couple of chunks and put them together, right? So in the research, it says we need to teach our phonics in a structured, systematic, and cumulative way. So you see when we just add each sound and then let them read sentences and write sentences and dictate to each other using things that they have mastered, they soon become very competent in these areas. So if you look at this list of 7, the first thing is to introduce the phonemes. And as adult teachers of adults, we all know, and they say that we should be teaching phonemic awareness along with phonics. And if our students don't need phonemic awareness, we know that pretty quickly because they can do this, so we don't teach it to them. Once students can discern the different sounds in a word, right, then you shift most of your focus just to the phonics and to the spelling. And once they've got the consonants, the vowels, digraph blends, diphthongs, and they can hear the syllables, right? Because every syllable has a vowel. They can clap it out, or they can watch someone's mouth, because you know your jaw drops when you make a vowel sound. So you can count the vowel sounds or the syllables in a word just by looking at someone. Then after you've done that and they really feel pretty good, you can begin to focus more on roots and their meanings, prefixes and suffixes and their meanings. And if we do it in this sort of a systematic way, we should be able to teach them, and they should be able to learn more quickly. So another major component is feedback, and that's where teachers are so incredibly important with these students, because the information is out there all the time, but as teachers, part of the art of teaching is giving the feedback and the encouragement to help them understand that they are doing it and that they can do it. And but when we give feedback, they really say we should just pick one of these. at a time. Don't do all of them, just do one at a time. So we might say, if in a phonics lesson, not a fluency lesson, don't do phonics and fluency at the same time. They are separate things. So in a phonics lesson, you might say, look at that word more carefully and give them a moment to see if they can use the information they have to decode it. Or what letter does that begin with? What sound does it begin with, even better? Or sound it out if they misspeak a word, or break it into syllables, which really means the chunks that they have become more familiar with, to sound it out. And if that doesn't work, you might just tell the student the word. But choose one of those, not 2 or 3 or 4, and it seems to work better. All right, you introduce spelling words once the student really is getting more comfortable with writing. Because if you introduce them too soon, it's overwhelming. You know, when you master something, then you're ready for the next thing. So that's when you add them in, and it really, you add them in, not like you have to know this, but more, or I like to add them in more like saying, hey, these are great guidelines that are going to help it make it easier for you to spell correctly. And then the spelling rules are working for them. They're not forced to memorize yet something else that's difficult. So here's an example, okay? They hear the sound ow, and they've been reading it and writing it, and now you say there are 2 ways to spell ow. You can spell it O-W or O-U, and there's no particular reason for it to be one way or the other. But I will tell you that more often it will be spelled O-W than O-U. And oddly enough, one of the key ways we know if we're spelling something correctly is looking at it. If it looks weird, try it the other way. And that's a good way to begin learning how to spell. So I wanted to give you something. I love this app. I recommend all my students put it on their phones. And a lot of teachers really enjoy having this as a quick, easy guideline. So this is a phonogram sound app, and it's free. And what it does is it clearly delineates the vowels from the consonants, and it gives you all the sounds. So it gives you all 3 of those sounds. But this is something that's really pretty cool. Listen to this one. So what this does is it gives them another clue, okay? So if they hear A in the middle of a word, it is either vowel consonant E, right? That A, or it's probably spelled AI. But if they hear it at the end of a word, listen to this. So there's some really simple things like that that help them be able to spell better. So for example, the word pain, they hear the A, they could try AI or ANE because it's at the beginning or the middle. But with the word stay, they hear the A at the end, so they would think, oh, it's probably AY. So I love this.
We couldn't hear that. Maybe we can just make sure that people try that afterwards on their own.
Oh, shoot. Okay. All right. Thank you for telling me that. So what happens with this, and the students love this too. Did you hear me talking about it?
Yeah, we can hear you talking. We just couldn't hear we couldn't hear the app.
So the nice thing for the teacher is this provides the reinforcement for you because it actually says what I said. It tells you when that spelling could be used and when it cannot be used. And after you go through these a few times, you really sort of become a better speller. Okay, so hopefully I can get rid of this picture, right, Liz, and get back to my PowerPoint? Yes, good. All right, so far we've talked about phonemic awareness and phonics, and we know we can teach those simultaneously. And now we're going into fluency, which is our bread and butter. If we can get these guys fluent, oh man, we can help get them where they want to go. So fluency has three components. It has speed, expression, and accuracy. So speed is important because our working memory is about 20 seconds. So if you read really slowly, it's not that you're not paying attention, you really can't remember the beginning of your sentence. Expression, when your students can read with expression, then you know they know what they're reading. They're actually reading fast enough and automatically enough that they are able to think about what the sentence means while they're reading it. So, and the last one is accuracy, because unless you're about 95% accurate, it is really difficult to comprehend anything. And people think you can make more mistakes than that and comprehend. And, you know, the research just doesn't back that up. So this is a huge part of our job, is to help students read enough that they start reading fluently with speed, just like they were talking, expression, and accuracy. So in order to build fluency, these are 4 examples of things you can do for repeated reading. So they have found that round robin reading only helps the individual who's reading. So I have my students read chorally, and we may not sound pretty, but we can do it. Everybody reads at once. And I tell them if there are choruses where everybody sings together and it sounds okay, we should be able to create the rhythm and pattern to read together chorally. I also have them do paired reading. So for example, even at a lower level, like those sentences I made for phonics, so we would do those together. Then they would write words that they came up with from their oral vocabulary that use those sounds. Then they would write sentences. And then later on, I would pair them up with a partner. And they would each read to the partner. And then I would do a third reading where they would each dictate to their partner, because they can do these. And that gives, so I'm reading to Liz and Liz is writing the sentence. We are both working in that moment. And then Liz reads to me and I have to write the sentence. And if you're thinking, baby, this isn't going to work in my class because everyone's got a different pace, you're right. So all you do is put an online timer on, you know, from your computer. It's free. Stick it up on the board and say, do it for 5 minutes. The timer will ring, and then you just switch, right? And so maybe Liz and I get through 5 sentences, and maybe Sally and Sam get through 3. It doesn't matter. We've all worked at our maximum ability. Do you see what I'm saying? Plus, if I had only gotten through 3 sentences and I was a little competitive, I could read those sentences to myself at home and write them. Or I could dictate them into my phone and listen to it and write it. It's a way to give them extra practice without being super boring. And then after you do all of that, I do a timed reading, which is I set the timer for 1 minute. They're with a partner. Their partner counts any errors they make, and they keep their hand under the table so it doesn't disrupt the reader. And so the reader really begins to focus on reading accurately. And remember, that is a real goal in order to become a fluent reader. So you've had repeated readings where everyone is working the entire time, and they are doing a lot more repetition in reading. And the research says that these repeated readings, they improve the quality of fluency, and that improvement will transfer to other texts. This is what's going to make the difference for our students. So when you are reading one-on-one with a student, or you can teach your pairs to do this, there are three things they say are really great for feedback. And that is that when a student makes an error, you pause, and I always point under the error, and I give them a second, and I prompt them what word. And then when they give me the word, I say, yeah, great. And I always have them read each sentence over, so everything they read is correct. So when they go back to read again, they'll probably, during a second reading, they'll probably have a much better chance of understanding what they read. So the National Reading Panel has concluded that reading aloud, one-on-one feedback, and rereading seem to be essential for reading fluency. So the research also says that reading out loud improves their ability to read out loud, their oral reading. It improves their decoding skills. It improves silent reading comprehension, and it improves word recognition. This is really important, that we choose reading that is familiar and predictable when they are learning to decode and become fluent, because it allows them to successfully use the skills they have to figure things out. And it really makes a huge difference. It's also important that we focus on short texts, because we only have so much time, and short texts allow for the rereadings that seem to really improve their fluency. So here's another website. And I know we don't have a ton of time, but I really want to show it to you, because if you have students at the lower reading levels, it's really hard to find things you can use with them. So this is called Marshall Reading, and I love it for a couple of reasons. I'm going to show you why in a second. But they focus on 0.7, you know, which is like kindergarten, up through 4.5, and all the readings are made for adults. So I'm going to go to like a 1.5, and I'm going to do blood pressure check, okay? And this is very adult material, and we're very familiar with this type of format. It gives us a couple of pre-reading questions to think about. It gives you definitions of words, and all of this is leveled. They've leveled the text for us. But then, remember I told you one of your rereadings is going to be a timed reading? And with a timed reading, you just time it for a minute, then you count the number of words the person read, and you subtract any errors. And those are the number of words they read correctly. And they can chart it for themselves, and it's really nice for them to actually have a physical chart of their improvement. The charting of reading speed is not for me. It is for them to own their own improvement. But if you'll notice on here, you see the number 15 on the left? What that means is the first sentence has 15 words. And the second sentence begins with the 16th word. So her is number 16, doctor is 17, asked is 18. This her at the end is number 33. So if your students are doing a timed reading, they never have to count more than halfway through a sentence to figure out how many words they've read. So it makes it really easy for the teacher. Okay. I don't know if you guys get that excited, but I get really excited when I find something free and easy that I can use with my students. All right. So this is step 4. Now they read fluently. They read like they talk, okay? And my students always wonder, you know, well, how do you get to be a 9th grade reader and all of that? And honestly, they haven't really thought about it very much, but I tell them the difference between a 3rd or a 4th grade reader is simply the number of words you know and what you've learned from what you've read. So once you become a fluent reader, you begin to read more and more, you get more words in your vocabulary, and that's what changes your reading level. Because all of us plateau at some reading speed. You know, we have sort of a, we keep improving till we get to a certain point that's us, and that's as fast as we read. For the rest of our life, we get smarter by reading more things, thinking about them, building our vocabulary. So once you're fluent, then you're shifting your focus to comprehension. Remember back at the beginning, I said you learn to read with Phonemic Awareness, Phonics, and Fluency. So once you're fluent, then you shift everything, and from here on out, you are reading to learn things. And you are building your vocabulary and your background knowledge. So, and this is, sometimes I think they didn't tell us this, but this is so true, and this is what the research has said. Fluency is a precursor to comprehension. And when I worked with elementary schools, I can't tell you the number of times I was told a child had a comprehension problem, but they didn't, because when I talked to them, they were smart little cookies. Their problem was a fluency problem. And so to build fluency, you have to work on fluency. And once you can become fluent, then you may or may not have a comprehension problem. But you can't tell until you're fluent. So here's the other bit about comprehension. To comprehend, it depends on your background knowledge, your prior knowledge. So it's like a chicken and the egg, right? To understand anything you read, you need to link it to what you already know and build from there. And we need to teach our students to recognize what they do know and to link new knowledge to it and add to that. And things like that little blood pressure article, you know, people know some things about that, and they need to get used to linking what they know and adding it to the new knowledge. That's how you build your vocabulary, your comprehension. It's critical. And so for students who do not read well yet, I really encourage them. I think it's really important that we choose, I'm looking at my watch because I know we only have a few minutes. It's really important that we choose reading material at their level that will touch on things that they'll need later on for the GED, which are things like history and world history and US history and economics, and things are written at their level for that. We need to be able to begin linking that knowledge. So again, the research recommends that we do one of these while we're reading. We say, does that make sense? And give them a chance to think about it. Or what does that mean? Which is really important because you are training them to begin to think about what they're reading once they become fluent. And if it doesn't seem to make sense, we say, what should it say? And then we do a rereading to see if in fact that is what it's saying, right? You're always teaching them to check and see if things make sense when they're reading. And again, if a student doesn't know something, you just tell them the word. And in a comprehension lesson, to move on and discuss the ideas. So our last step is vocabulary. And the truth is that vocabulary and comprehension, they're side by side. They're taught simultaneously throughout our lifetime. But vocabulary is not a list of words. Vocabulary is best taught in content. We have very limited time to teach our students to read. So I certainly would recommend that we spend as much time in class reading, and that teachers walk around and act as facilitators, making sure paired readings are occurring, helping them when they are reading and writing with each other. The more reading they do, the sooner they'll be fluent, and the sooner they can shift their focus to vocabulary and comprehension. And they really need us there to help transition that and to train them to think once they get to that phase. So I see we're almost out of time, but what I'd like to say is that you all are their best hope of becoming really good readers. And all of this information I've given you is research-based, so you can refer to any solid research to refresh yourself on any of these. But they will learn to read better and faster if you can recognize where they are along this continuum and help them move forward. So Liz?
Yep. Okay, so we are actually out of time. So what I did in the questions, I answered as many as I could as I went, and I gave them your email. I hope that's okay.
Sure.
And I just asked them if they would email their questions to you, that you would be more than happy to respond.
Yes.
And I want to thank you again. This is right up my alley. I'm a master's in reading as well, so I was very happy to participate. It was fun. I hope you guys learned a lot. And this whole presentation will be available in a day or two on our website, www.coabe.org, and just look under webinar resources. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Well, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.